There is a special kind of hell reserved for those whose greatest strength becomes their ultimate weakness. Imagine a mind so sharp it could tear the world apart with words, a talent so explosive it built an empire from rage and rhyme. Now imagine that same mind turning inward, a weapon aimed at its own host, systematically destroying the body that carried it. This is not a metaphor. This was the reality for Marshall Mathers. By 2007, the man known as Eminem was a ghost living in a chemical prison of his own design. The voice that defined a generation was being silenced, not by critics or rivals, but by the very prescriptions meant to keep it alive. He was consuming a pharmacy, Vicodin, Valium, Ambien, a cocktail designed to numb the noise but which instead amplified the silence of a soul fading out. The scale read 230 pounds, a number that had nothing to do with strength and everything to do with decay. He was a billionaire artist who could no longer trust his own hands to stop shaking, a global icon who couldn't look at his own reflection. This is the story of what happens when the music stops, the lights go out, and you are left alone with the monster you've become. This is the story of how one man traded the slow suicide of addiction for the life-saving torture of discipline. How he used iron and pavement to rebuild not just a body, but a soul. The overdose was not a wake-up call. It was a flatline. His heart, swollen and stressed, finally gave out. His body, saturated with toxins, simply shut down. When he woke up in a hospital bed, it wasn't to a revelation, but to a vacuum. The pills were gone. The chemical curtain that had separated him from his own pain had been ripped away. The silence was deafening, a roaring absence where the numbness used to be. The anxiety he had medicated for decades returned not as a whisper but as a scream, a constant vibrating terror in his bones. The urge to relapse was a physical ache, a phantom limb that still reached for the bottle. In this raw, excruciating state, a therapist offered a suggestion that seemed almost insultingly simple. Try exercise. For a man whose life was a complex tapestry of trauma, fame, and artistic pressure, the idea of going for a run felt like trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. But for a mind wired for obsession, a simple suggestion can become a command. And so he began to run. The first attempts were a humiliation. His body, a vessel poisoned for years, revolted. His lungs, accustomed to smoke and stagnation, burned after a mere half-mile. His legs, heavy with the weight of neglect, felt like concrete. Every step was agony, but it was a clean pain, an honest pain. It was a pain that signaled life, not death. With each pounding stride on the pavement, he wasn't running toward fitness. He was running from the ghost of the man he had been, the phantom that still haunted his bloodstream, whispering that one pill would make it all stop. But Marshall Mathers does not do things in half measures. An all-consuming addiction was simply replaced by an all-consuming discipline. The running was just the foundation, the first brick in a fortress he would build around his new life. He discovered a new high, not in a capsule, but in the searing burn of muscle failure, the deep, satisfying fatigue that came only from total physical expenditure. He transformed his home into a monastery of self-repair. His basement became a sanctuary of sweat and iron, a place with no cameras, no yes men, just the cold, honest truth of the weights and the reflection in the mirror that he was learning to face again. His workouts were engineered with the same meticulous, obsessive precision he applied to his music. They became his new lyrics, structured, repetitive, brutally demanding. He instituted a regimen of 2-a-day sessions that would break a professional athlete. His mornings were dedicated to a punishing 2-hour cardio siege, endless, mind-numbing miles on the treadmill, the relentless monotony of the elliptical, the turning of the stationary bike until his legs were numb. He chased a 10-mile run with the same relentless focus he once used to hunt a perfect rhyme. The afternoons were for the weight room, a place where he could physically wrestle control back from the chaos. Each deadlift was a repudiation of weakness. Every bench press was a defiance of the past. Every squat was a promise to the future. His mastery over language now extended to his own biology. The man who could deconstruct and reassemble words into devastating patterns now applied that same analytical genius to his nutrition. Food was stripped of its emotion and reduced to its component parts: fuel, function, data. He adhered to a strict scientific intake of lean proteins, complex carbohydrates, and green vegetables. Every meal was a calculated step toward his goal, a direct refutation of the mindless consumption that had characterized his addiction. He was programming his body like he programmed his tracks, with flawless, uncompromising precision. Yet the most profound metamorphosis was occurring not in his muscles, but within the intricate wiring of his brain. The intense, prolonged cardio was performing a kind of neurological alchemy. It flooded his system with endorphins, creating a natural euphoria that his body had forgotten how to produce. More importantly, it was actively rewiring the dopamine pathways that addiction had hijacked and corrupted. The gym became his most effective therapy. The discipline required to complete a 2-hour workout was rebuilding his prefrontal cortex, strengthening the part of the brain responsible for impulse control and delayed gratification. The anxiety that once demanded instant chemical relief now found its outlet in the steady, rhythmic pounding of an 8-mile run. The rage that once fueled his most venomous verses could be purged through the explosive, grunting effort of lifting heavy iron. He was forging a new mind in the fire of physical exertion. The results of this total transformation became visible to the world during his legendary comeback. The bloated, haunted figure was gone, replaced by a man with the lean, hardened physique of a welterweight boxer. He had shed nearly 80 pounds of toxicity and replaced it with functional, resilient muscle. But the most dramatic change was in his eyes. The glassy, distant haze was replaced by a sharp, hyper-focused intensity. On stage, his energy was no longer the frantic, chaotic spark of his youth, but the controlled, explosive power of a seasoned athlete. He could command a stadium for hours, his stamina a direct testament to the thousands of miles run and thousands of pounds lifted in solitude. This new body was not for aesthetic appeal. It was armor. It was a living, breathing monument to the daily decision to choose life over decay. It was his ultimate masterpiece, an opus written not in words but in sweat, sacrifice, and unwavering discipline. He had taken the same obsessive-compulsive drive that nearly killed him and channeled it into the most ambitious project of his life, the complete and total rebuilding of Marshall Mathers. His journey from the depths of chemical dependency to the pinnacle of physical discipline stands as one of the most powerful testaments to human resilience in modern history. It proves that our deepest weaknesses can be mined, refined, and transformed into our greatest strengths. Eminem's story demonstrates that the path to redemption is not paved with good intentions, but with the grueling, unglamorous daily grind of showing up. It's in the choice to run when every muscle fiber screams to stop, to eat the clean meal when the world offers endless temptation, to embrace the burn as a reminder that you are alive and fighting. The same hands that once trembled, searching for a pill bottle, now grip a barbell with absolute purpose. The mind that once constructed elaborate rationalizations for its own destruction now calculates rest periods and macronutrient profiles with clinical detachment. The transformation is a total recalibration of a human being. He is living proof that we are not permanent prisoners of our past mistakes or our chemical dependencies. The man who once stared into the abyss now uses that darkness as a source of power, a perpetual reminder of what he overcame. His legacy is no longer just about the music he created, but about the life he reclaimed. A brutal, beautiful symphony of survival composed in the relentless, punishing, and ultimately liberating rhythm of pure discipline. The intense, driving music that has underscored the narration fades, replaced by a single, clear, resonant piano note that hangs in the air. The final image is a slow-motion shot of Eminem on stage, drenched in sweat, his chest heaving, a look of fierce, earned peace on his face. The camera holds on his eyes. So the next time you see him, remember what you are truly witnessing. You are not just looking at a rapper or a celebrity. You are looking at a man who looked into the void and didn't just climb out. He used the darkness as his foundation. He took the very pain that was meant to destroy him and forged it into an unbreakable will. The addiction didn't win. The pills didn't win. The doubt didn't win. Because in the end, the most powerful drug he ever discovered was the relentless, unforgiving, life-saving power of discipline.